A plectrum, I found a plectrum. That's a really good look. Well, I'll put that there. Oh, this place gets messy. Messy. A bit of a tidy up before we start on this video. Right. Okay, right. Oh, it's a mess. Hello? Philosophy Sunday today, isn't it? Philosophy Sunday. Can't say it. I need to practice that for next time, I think. I was just having a think. People always say I talk on this channel too much about music. There's too much talking about music. Why don't we have for once, just on a Philosophy Sunday, how about we listen to some music? Shall we do that? Do you want to listen to some music? Let's have a look what we've got over here then. What have we got? We've got some Jaco Pastorius, John McLaughlin, some Steve Reich, Kate Bush, Frank Zappa, Illegal Aliens, that's a Marco Miniman album. I've got some Louis Armstrong, Herbie Hancock. Oh, there's all good stuff here. What do you fancy? What do you fancy listening to today? Shall I put on something I haven't listened to? There's a lot of CDs here that I've never listened to. I've bought so many albums. Let's see. Oh, see this one here. This one looks good, doesn't it? Right. So, what I've got here is. Oh, hang on. Who's texting me now? Let's just check what's going on here. Right. Before we get sorted out, you know. I'm not going to do this video properly. I'm not going to work out what I'm going to say. If you're going to moan about me talking about stuff too much, who's just text me then? Who was it? So this is just normal life, isn't it? This is normal life. You're just getting to watch normal life. Me just potting around in my studio, having a bit of a tidy up. Can have a listen to some music. That's what it's all about, isn't it? Oh. And then people text you, don't they? It gets on your nerves. It gets on your nerves, it does. Oh, it's a WhatsApp. Bloody WhatsApp, eh? Is that it? Nothing exciting. Life's not exciting, is it? It's boring. Work. Problems with your family. Not enough money. Trouble in the world. Everything's going down the pan. Sometimes it's nice to escape into some music. Shall we do that? Let's do that. Because I know you sat there going, what the hell is Andy doing? What is he doing? Well, I'm just kicking back on a Philosophy Sunday. I'm just kicking back. I'm giving you a different type of YouTube video. I'm not even sat in the right place. I'm too far over to whatever that is, the left or the right. I can't work it out. I'm too far. Nothing's right, you know. It's like, oh, what's he trying to do? Is this entertainment? Is this entertainment? What is this? Is it supposed to be educational? Or is it just Andy being silly? Every now and then he has to be silly, doesn't he? And he's being silly. Right, shall we have a listen to an album? Pull this album. I've never listened to this album. It is called Last Exit. It's a live album, and I don't know if you can see. It's called, can you see that? The Best of Live. So this is the best stuff they've done. This is, I've got my little CD player over there. It won't sound great where you are. I've only got a little CD player in here, but I'll go and put it on, shall we have a listen to it? We'll have a listen to it together, then I'll give you my thoughts and wisdom on this. So just hang on, I'll just go and put it on. Just go down to switch it on. I'll be back in a minute, don't worry, I'll be back. I know this isn't normal. Right, let's have a listen to this one, shall we? Right. Hang on, I think the CD's broken. CD's broken, hang on. Let's have a look at it. Oh, no scratches on it, no scratch. Right, let's have another go. You just must stop me playing. Right, let's have another go, shall we? just a weird intro. It'll kick in a minute. It's going to kick in a minute. In a minute. Just wait, it will kick in a minute. It's a bit better. It's like a bit of a groove now. Maybe there's some explanation. I don't think I can take much more of this. I'm going to switch it off. Right, I'm going to go and switch it off. You okay with that? Shall I go and switch it off? Hold it there. I thought it might kick in and get, I don't know, do something, but I don't know. Anyway, I'll go and switch it off. My God, what did I buy this for? Got it on import, it cost me loads of money. What track's that? Pig Freedom, that's called, by Last Exit. What a waste of money. I mean, how could they even say that that's music? That's not music. Anybody could do that. That's just them. They're just making as much noise as they can. It's like, you know, the guitarist is just strumming open chord and making as much noise as he can, and then the saxophone players, the drum and the bass players seem like they're playing two different rooms. It's I mean, why would anybody want to do that? I mean, why would people spend money on even releasing an album like this? I mean, to me, this isn't music. That's not music. That isn't. It's just rubbish, absolute rubbish. Why would anyone listen to that? I mean, if you like listening to that, you've got to have a screw loose, haven't you? You've got to have a screw loose. It's not music, is it? It's just not music. It's just people making as much noise, screaming, and there's no structure there. There's nothing to listen to. There's nothing to latch on to. It's just rubbish. I mean, look what they say in the liner notes. It's like, it's what he says. He goes. That their vast sound is more than just improvising. It draws on the richness of a whole reservoir of information already fed in. This music is definitely grounded in traditions. There are deep blues in here alongside the free music aspects abstracted from the glorious legacies of Coltrane and Albert Ayler. Moreover, Last Exit played with a rock authority that no other jazz-based improvisers have matched. It says here, that the quartet played purely. That was all it did. And then one of them says, we don't rehearse, do promotion, or any of that bullshit. You can say that again. You can tell they don't rehearse. Sounds like a donkey being tortured. It's donkey torture. I mean, who'd want to listen to donkey torture? That's just, it's out of order. You shouldn't be torturing donkeys for pleasure. It's ridiculous. Absolutely ridiculous. I think it's disgusting. I take you know, see this album? This album, sod it. Chucked it. I'm sticking it in the bin. I don't like it. It's rubbish. How can people call that music? Ridiculous. Hello and welcome to this video. Right, so I thought I would try and make an unwatchable YouTube video, at least at the start, you know, something that was truly awful. And I wanted to draw your attention philosophically, because it is Philosophy Sunday today. See, I can say it right if I want. To this idea of what the purpose of art is, right? Is art there for you to like? Now, when you make YouTube videos like I am, you know, I am very sensitive about how the video should start, how I should introduce it, lay down what we're going to do, you know, and take you on, you know, open my arms and take you on a little journey, you know, tell you the things you're expecting to hear, then maybe tell you something you didn't expect to hear and all that sort of stuff. Whilst I was doing that, the anxiety of actually doing that on a video, right, of actually just switching the camera on and just whatever happens, happens. Just so that, you know, not some artifice, not some planning or me trying to explain something to you and be cogent and articulate. Not that. To just let whatever happens, happens within this frame. You know, this is a bizarre thing, right? Is this a good YouTube video? Is it, what does it mean? Has it got any meaning at all? Right? And it's a little bit like that album by Last Exit. That is a difficult listen. And on this video, I would like to discuss how you listen to difficult music. Now, we just did, right? And the way I listened to it was by bringing all my judgments, right? All my ideas of what music should be, all my ideas of what people have done in the past, what my expectations are, and I bring that to that music. And when it doesn't deliver that to me and it delivers something else, I don't consider the other else that's being delivered. What I do is just considering how it measures up to my ruler and my measurements, right? This is something that I became aware of when I was very young. And the reason it did was because my respect and faith in the musicians, right? Now, this is a really strange argument. In the current sort of times where people believe that, you know, my opinion is valid as anybody else's, if I don't like that and I think it's a load of rubbish, I'm entitled to my opinion, it's just as valid as anybody else. Well, I didn't quite believe that, and I'll tell you why, because I had been brought up listening to jazz, right? I had an idea, and I would argue this to anybody, that the master jazz musicians are very good musicians, right? And if you compare them to like other musicians, like musicians in pop bands maybe, you know, somebody just goes down the pub and sings a few chords and, you know, sings a few Don McLean songs and everyone has a clap along. It's not the same. These musicians are on another level, right? I think that's subjective. I think it's the case, right? It doesn't make sense to me to say they're all on the same level because you know it's not true, right? What it is that knows it's not true is your own humanity, your own judgment. You go, well, that's just a person's judgment, but that's what this is, okay? Art is about judgment. It's about judging what is beautiful or ugly. It's making a quality decision, right? And the reason why the artists do it is because they assume that in the person that's receiving the art, that they're sort of similar to the person that's making the art. And when they make a certain thing, that the person will respond in a similar way. Right, there will be differences, there'll be similarities, and in the negotiation of those differences and similarities, we can sort of get a collective idea of what is great and what is good and what's beautiful and what's ugly and what is bad, right? And by doing that, we can sort of put our arms around the world and we can all sort of hug each other in a sort of mutual realization that on the whole we see things the same and we have the same quality judgments, but we differ in little cases. And so, yeah, it's not entirely subjective. And this is what I discussed last week. And this video really follows on for that. So what happens when you get faced with a piece of music like that? Okay? Now, what I think is going on is that the first thing for me when I was very young and I was faced by music like this is I consider the musicians that were making it. This first happened to me with the album Bitches Brew by Miles Davis. Now, Bitches Brew, right, sounds like the Carpenters compared to what I just played you over there, right? It's but for me, it had come up through heavy metal, then into prog rock, and then jazz rock fusion, Mavish Nuxtra, and then I checked out the musicians on Bitches Brew. It's like, oh my God, everybody's on here. John McLaughlin's on here, Dave Holland's on here, Lenny White's on here, Chick Corea's on here, Joe Zawinul's on here, Wayne Shorter's on here. This is bonkers, you know. Bernie Maupin from the Headhunters on here. Everyone's on here. So this is going to be the best album in the world. When I took it home, I didn't get it. I didn't understand it. But I could have just said, well, this is not music, this is not that, this is not this. And when I'm saying this is not music, like the little act I was putting on, that most people's reaction would be to that track. When I'm saying this is not music, what I'm really saying, this is not my version of what music is, right? I have an idea of what it should be doing for me, and it's not delivering what I want, okay? Now, one of the things about art and music, I think, is when an artist makes a piece of art, they could be just purely trying to entertain you, right? They could be just purely trying to lay on a lovely feast of sound that you could just sit back and relax and bathe in the beauty of it, right? But artists don't always do that. Because artists are visionaries. Artists are looking deeper into it. That's why they're artists. They are going to renegotiate what we think is beautiful. They're going to reconsider what is ugly. Okay? And so because of that, they might look and say, well, I want to take them to another place. But to do that, the listener or the viewer is going to have to reserve their judgment, right? They're going to have to take away the considerations of what they think is beautiful or ugly. They're going to have to park those and maybe search for a different type of beautiful or ugly, right? This is, in a way, the most important aspect of art and music, the fact that it can renegotiate that. So, if you're faced with something difficult, like that track, the first thing I would do is I would think, what am I bringing to it and what are my assumptions about it? And you may find that you know nothing about the musicians, right? And that will colour your judgment. If you know something about the musicians and they're doing something different, that will colour your judgment, right? But however you see it, those things have to be taken into consideration, and you have to sit back and think, well, what did I expect from this? You know, what was I expecting from this? And if you look at that last Exit album cover, I've chucked it over the room. Shall I go and get it? Hang on. Let's go and get it. I threw it across the room. I didn't really mean to throw it. I threw it trying to make it look like I was aggressively throwing it in disgust. But because this is a very valued album of mine, I actually threw it so it landed on a nice soft bit over there. So say you look at the cover of that. What's this? Is this some sort of gothy metal darkness? It's very dark anyway. You know, and look at the back. It's all very sort of, you know, I don't know how you describe it. It's almost like sort of European, Eastern European communism sort of, I don't know. It's all very stark, isn't it? Tracks Enemy Within, Pig Freedom, Discharge, Red Light, Panzer Bebop. That sums up that cover, that there. Panzer Bebop, Blind Willie, Help Me Mo I'm Blind, Ma Rainey. There's a track called My Balls, Your Chin. I'll just move on. And Line of Fire. So it's really interesting because I'm seeing a certain story here, right? But I hadn't seen it before. We'll get onto that in a minute. So you may think it's going to be dark, gothic, heavy, you know, intimidating. Well, that music is, isn't it? But it's more than what we expected. The musicians are playing at a visceral level, at the extreme of what they can play at. You feel like the guitarist of the saxophone and just going at the guitar physically as hard as they possibly can. Right? It's a primal scream. All right. The bass is like Lemmy, and it's like got this heavy metal sound, and it's winding around, and the drums are pulling sort of from almost like African music. You know, there's all this. So there's lots of different elements here. It's not just noise. But if you're expecting, what do we expect from it? A tune, a verse, a chorus? They're not doing that. Now, are they not doing that? Are they not playing in tune? Are they not using sounds that are pretty because they've made a mistake? Or is it their judgment? Is it their decision to play like that? So they have decided to play like that, right? So rather than trying to measure, if you're measuring that on saying, well, how pretty is the sounds? It's awful. If you're trying to measure it on whether a good groove, what about the technical ability? If you're measuring by all these measurements, it's not great. But if you're measuring it in a different way, and then if you step back and consider what they are actually doing, right? The guitars and the saxophone on that are acting like a scream. It's like a primal scream, but the rhythm section isn't. Bill Laswell on bass, he's playing this sort of very heavy metal influence overdriven bass line. It's bubbling, it's pulling from a different area. So we've got this scream, and then we've got this sort of heavy metal bass going on, and then the drums very penetrating sound, almost like a rock sound, but Ronald Shannon Jackson is playing sort of cross rhythms, polyrhythms, and actually when you listen to the rhythm section are meshed. There is a groove there, but that groove is liquid and moving around, right? Now a big clue for me when I look at the titles on this is the first three tracks are sort of very punk type titles. Enemy Within, Pig Freedom, Discharge, Red Lights. That's all very punky. Then we have a track called Panzer Bebop. That conjures up two images. It's this sort of Nazi army brutal sound, like that. It's that Eastern Europe sound, and then you've got jazz in there. So those two things are starting to point to us. But then here's the telling bit. We have three tracks: Blind Willie, Help Me Mo I'm Blind, and Ma Rainey. Right now, Blind Willie, I believe, is a reference to Blind Willie Johnson, right? The great early blues guitarist. And then the next track on here, which I think is Help Me Mo I'm Blind, right? I think that is an old blues style. So the blues is rearing its head in here. And of course, Ma Rainey, okay, is named after the great early blues singer. So what they're doing, I think, is they are going back to the beginnings of all the music we listen to. They're going back to early blues, they're going back to early jazz, but they're not going back to the sort of folk end of it. They're going back to a visceral scream that's contained within the blues. They're going back to the timbre of the blues, the tone, right? They're exploring a certain aspect, and they're exploring it at an extreme. And why would they want to do that? Why do they want to explore the outer levels of this, like almost like physical endurance? How much can you take, right? What they are doing is they are trying in us to create a feeling, and it's not the feeling that we expect. It's a feeling of like almost being attacked. It's a discomfort feeling. We're experiencing joy and pain at the same time, right? That's what they're trying to embody on this record, right? Now, I'm sure you will be now saying, yeah, that's all very intellectual, Andy. I understand what you're saying. It's like, take your judgments away. You don't judge it on yours. You're try and penetrate into the music yourself and see what you think it's about in itself, which is what I've just tried to do. I've tried to look at the artwork, the titles, listen to it, add all that up together, and I start to get an idea of what these musicians are doing. Now, the next thing you could say, it's all well and good, that's great, but I still don't like it. I don't want to listen to that, right? So the next question is that what is the function of music? Well, music and I've said this over and over again, is the balance between hedonism and perfectionism. It explores the visceral and how the visceral relates to the ordered. It's about chaos and order. It is quite apparent that this is really about chaos, right? But the orderly bits, or the bits of orderliness, are to do with history, and that's mentioned in the notes. This is respectful and drawing from the traditions of jazz and blues. It's making the argument this is still jazz. It might have the energy and volume of heavy metal. It might have the visceral attack of free jazz, but it's also sat within the tradition. This is two ideas that were also explored by both of these musicians in their own way. You know, Cecil Taylor treating the piano like a drum, like an African drum choir, and thinking of the rhythmical aspects of it. And Anthony Braxton contrasting a jazz artist playing saxophone with approaches that you would expect from almost like modern classical music, right? So musicians are never not doing anything. They're always doing something. There's an intention, and by exploring the intention of it, you can then start to open up the doors to get in. Now that doesn't mean you're going to like it or not like it, right? But that's the doorway in, is hanging up your preconceptions and thinking, why are they doing this, right? Now, as I said, if you then find that you don't like the music, what is the function of music, right? Now, this idea that it's about chaos and order, right? But the fact is music has underneath that a whole bunch of different functions. You may sit and listen to music at home and enjoy it, and that might be your criteria of why you like music, right? But for the person who goes to church and sings a hymn, that hymn is having a completely different function. I still believe underlying it, it's balancing chaos and order, but it has a completely different function. When you're watching a film, right, and it's a horror film and they're creeping into a creepy house and there's a murder in there, what you're listening to is avant-garde classical orchestral music, right? Now, if it was a film and this music was functioning in a different way, what sort of film would have that music? And then would that music make aesthetic sense? What is the pictures of the film that you hear when you listen to that? That's another way of opening the door. You know, what is it about? What's the intention? You know, what's the pictures it's painting? What is it about? You know, what are the musicians trying to say? And why are they trying to say it? Are they trying to say it intellectually, or is this just something that they need to do? Is this cathartic, right? And some music can be cathartic, you know, if you're stressed out, you know, go and get yourself a pillow and scream into it. You know, sometimes you've got to let this stuff go. And why should we negate music like that? And surely there's a place for music which is unlistenable. There's a place for music that exists intellectually in our mind. And the action of that music is the fact that we know it is there. We know that when it comes to music, whether you listen to heavy metal or heavy jazz or whatever, when it comes to that pure visceral energy, noise, screaming music, I may well have played you the absolute limit. Is this the limit of what human beings do? And the fact that we know it's there creates a boundary. And why does that matter? Because art does so much more than you think. The functions of art and music are so wide. It goes into our culture and it fixes sorts, it orders certain things. It pulls certain things together. It pushes certain things apart. It gives us a quality narrative to our experience continually. Right? It makes us know what we like. It makes us know what we don't like. It gets us to question those things. Right? This music does all that. What it doesn't do is occupy a criteria of being nice music that you're going to enjoy. Now, as you open it in, that's a visceral experience that they must be going through playing this, where they're just no rehearsing, no consideration of perfection. We're just going to go out and play as hard and loud and scream as much as we can, right? But we're going to work with each other. We're still working with each other. We're still playing with each other. Sometimes we're playing with each other by playing against each other. All these things are still going on in this music, right? And maybe if you could put yourself into their mind right? Rather than your mind, and think, what would it be like to play this? What are the pictures in your head? All these things are aids for you to opening the door to appreciating new music, right? You start by listening intellectually. If you ever play someone a piece of music that they have never heard before, they never listened to it emotionally, the first thing they do will analyse, they'll go, what is this about? What are the boundaries? How does it work? That's part of the aspect of music. That's one of the things we do. Once we've judged it and we know where it is, then we decide whether we like it, and if we like it, and that is by comparing to stuff we already know, we then open up that door and we send it to our pleasure centres and we start to enjoy it, right? Now, for someone who's invested in this, for someone who has searched for the most extreme, noisy, chaotic music, there will be an enjoyment in discovering this. There'll be some of you will go, oh my God, what the hell is Andy put on? This is amazing, I've got to have this album. And it is, just so you know. It's the Best of Live by Last Exit, which is a collection of their live recordings from, I think, the late 1980s. It's a compilation of 3 albums, and I wish I could tell you what they are, but I can't. I'd have to go and read the liner notes. Yeah, I think the first album, I don't know. Oh, I don't know. I'm trying to make this work. I'm trying to make this video work. It's so hard to keep the thing up and going. It really is. So, this is the thing. I've tried to make a YouTube video that doesn't push the videos of entertainment. I've done what some people suggest I do, and I've just filmed myself listening to music. Is that entertainment? What does that mean? Well, I'm making a point, and I'm very aware of the point I'm making. I ain't going to tell you it. Often my videos work on a number of levels. Often they will transition. They will be doing one thing and then suddenly the video will transition to something else. You know, I'll be mining a very sort of perfectionist, ordered, grid-like point, and then suddenly the video may wander off into the aesthetic. It may go somewhere else. The video itself is telling you things. Everything surrounding the video is telling you things. The stuff I've placed in the background is all clues to what we're, I mean, I say clues, they're direct references, you know. But the way this video is constructed, you know, the little things that happen in it, right? Artists, even if they try and do something random, right? It is still their intention to do that. Art has a lot to do with intention. So to sum up what I've said on this video, if you approach some music that you find is, you don't like it, you find it difficult, or it's just not the sort of music you like, switch off your considerations by questioning what they are. What did I expect for this? What do I want from it? It's not giving me that. Take those. Once you've boxed those up and you can consciously see what they are, move them away, and then think, well, what are they trying to do? And do that because you trust the musicians. Say, they've made this for a reason. They wouldn't do this and put this out unless this was the statement. So what statement are they trying to make? And maybe I'm going to readjust my measurement to work out what it is. Once you start to work that out, see it as opening a door into the music. And one way to do that is considering what sort of film, what sort of story could this go with? You know, can you imagine a war film of utter brutality, you know, of really trying to personify the dirt and the blood and the guts and the fear of war? You know, the point where a human being is reduced down to the very, you know, essences of survival and aggressive attack. The things that go back to a memory a long time ago where we were, you know, living by tooth and claw. Imagine having a film like that and putting that soundtrack in there. Imagine the bombs coming in and people, you know, killing to stay alive. Imagine that, and that scream going on. And then suddenly you realise that primal scream that you would descend into, the fact that we live in an ordered world which is sat upon chaos all the time, that our ordered world could collapse at any point. And it happens to people all the time, this terrifying fact that people can live in perfectly nice countries and have lovely jobs, and suddenly there's a military coup, or there's a war, there's a battle, or they're invaded, and suddenly their whole structure falls away. You know, people are being tortured, people are being murdered, the structure's gone, people are starving to death, they're fighting each other, right? Suddenly the veneer of perfection and order that we value so much has collapsed. We live in a world at the moment where that veneer seems a little bit weak here and there. I don't want to poke it because the whole thing could be coming down. Now does this music make sense? Now does the fact that this music exists, right, that it's tangible, right? It may be the fact we reject it so much is because it is the embodiment of that chaos. It could well even be a warning about that chaos. And that chaos, whatever happens, we were born from and we will return to. We have no control over it. And that is the true definition of chaos. Now that is possibly artistically more valid than a Taylor Swift song, isn't it? Maybe there's something more to this than we think. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed this video, right? If you like the video, like it. If you want to see some more, then subscribe. If you want to support me on Patreon, please come and support me on Patreon. If you're enjoying Philosophy Sundays where I get a bit weird, then please do that. And then, what shall we finish this video with? How about we finish with the aesthetic, the idea that something else can happen. You know, the very mechanism, the elements of which this huge unit is built upon meld into the abstract.